Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining a few minutes early. We're just going to give people about a minute or two more to get in here. Unfortunately, we are unable to interact, so you can stare at Eli, Jeremy, and myself for a few minutes until we get going.
Hey.
Good morning.
Morning.
Happy Thursday.
This lady is headed to the airport with a smile on her face because she knows the TSA lines are going to be short.
Should be. She's brave traveling in heels as well, huh?
Correct. I don't know if she has to take them off when she gets to the line. Maybe she's a pre-check customer. I recommend that highly, keeping the belt and shoes on. It's kind of funny because we're talking about a virtual lunch event, and she's headed out with I hope she's not bringing a suitcase to a lunch meeting. That's kind of weird.
Maybe she's got lunch in the suitcase.
Yeah, that would be cool. Big giant lunchbox. And don't worry, folks, Kristen will give you some instructions on how to ask questions and things like that. So we'll give you some guidance as soon as we get started here.
Encourage question asking and participation as much as possible. Okay, looks like we have a lot of people in here already, so I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. Good morning, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining. My name is Kristen Koenig. I'm a consultant over here at Harbor Networks, and I just want to talk about a few things before we get started. As I mentioned before, we're unable to interact with any of the attendees. Your mics and cameras are turned off. But if you look at the top of your screen, you'll see a smiley face. If everyone could go ahead and send an emoticon along so we know that you can hear and see us, that would be really helpful. There we go. Thank you, guys. Feel free to keep those coming throughout the presentation, letting us know you're
still alive
with us.
Yep.
Awake.
Sometimes it's lonely at the top here. Keep us company.
Awesome. And next to that smiley face, you're going to see a box with a question mark in it. I guess I could be going through the slides here too. So that box is where the question mark is where you're going to submit all your questions. We're really encouraging you to use this. We will have time to review them all at the end, so please feel free to use that. There will be a 4-question survey at the end of this presentation. Please take a few minutes to do that as well. And a couple other things that are really fun about this. All attendees will be receiving a Grubhub gift card as a thank you for joining us. You'll receive those after the presentation. And last but not least, we will be raffling off a $100 Amazon gift card at the end of the presentation. You must be present on the webinar to win it. So everyone's going to know about that by the time we get through. And now that logistics are out of the way, I'd like to introduce Eli Navarro, who is a Cloud Solutions Engineer, and I'll hand it over to Jeremy Vignaux, who is our VP of Technology.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks, Eli, for joining me as well. We're gonna take a stab at showing you how our communications platform is unlike anything you've ever seen and better. So feel free to submit your questions. We'll get to them at the end. But I'm going to walk you through some important points here. I work for Harbor Networks. We are a Northeast-based company. Many of you know us. Some of you may not. Our history is in voice and telecommunications for 25 years this year. We do other things besides that. We do security and networking and infrastructure and Wi-Fi and things like that. So I'm not going to concentrate on a lot of those today. We're really going to talk about unified communications and collaboration. But we have a broad a reach within the United States and worldwide with customers all over the place. Any questions, certainly toss those in, and we'll get someone to talk to you about some of our other offerings. Okay. So what we're going to talk about today is HarborCloud Elevate. HarborCloud is sort of a suite of services that we offer to customers over as a cloud service. There are a couple of them, including the one we're going to talk about today, Elevate, which is our communications platform. And unless you've sort of been hiding under a rock, there are a lot of companies that offer cloud communications, cloud voice. Even people like Verizon and Comcast and carriers you've known for a long time. What we're going to talk about today is something a little bit different, and that difference is sort of borne out from our experience, from what some of our customers and former customers and new customers have talked about a need out there, and that need is, can we get a cloud service but still have a human and a partner to talk to? I think a lot of companies out there who have moved to cloud services have realized that many of the providers of these cloud services attempt to do everything they possibly can to do as little as possible and to sign up as many people. It's a business plan, probably in very small letters, written underneath the company goals. That is opposite of what people's expectation has certainly been over the last 20, 30 years in telecommunications. People were used to a company to come out with a van with spare parts and a tool belt and fix stuff, not to tell you to do something like unplug it for 5 minutes and plug it back in for 5 minutes. There is something about communications and voice and talking that is inherently urgent and inherently complicated. And it's one of the reasons why cloud communications has been one of the last things to be widely adopted out there, because there's been a lot of attempts in the past to do this, and they've done a very poor job. So what this offering is really a combination of a cloud platform on the back end that has all kinds of features that we're going to talk about, but it's partnered with Harbor Networks, where we are a company that you call when you have a question, when you have a support question, you have an install question. We are the company that does the training, the installation. We are the company that still has vans and spare parts and fixes things when they go wrong or helps you get off and rolling successfully. And this is a big differentiator. It's not easy to do, which is why everybody is not offering the same kind of thing, because there are tax and regulatory requirements that you are required to do when you do this sort of partnership. So that's why every IT shop in the world is not just offering cloud voice or cloud collaborations in the same model. Their model is more like a sales agent, where they introduce you to them and then you sign the contract and then you call the giant call center in the sky that may or may not be in North America. But this theme of us helping, us bringing that expertise that we've had, all along for 25 years and doing these projects and making sure that we're not just replacing what you have, but we're optimizing it in a lot of different ways. So that's kind of the thesis behind a lot of this. Don't lose sight of that when I get into the weeds on features and things like that. Anything else you want to add there, Eli, about that sort of partner-centric model, and what you've seen in the world?
I mean, I think Jeremy, you've done a nice job kind of defining what I call the partner value equation, right? I think it's easy to get excited about a product and maybe switching at the onset when things are rosy, but when things when things do go south, or there are challenges that need to be overcame, I think that's when people start to realize the value of the partnership, because you're calling Jeremy and team and us over here at Harbor, as opposed to, as Jeremy put, the contact center in the sky, which I think is really well put. So I think that was well said, Jeremy.
Great. All right. Well, we'll move on. So what is this platform? It is a suite of services that are all sort of bundled in, typically in a subscription. At the obvious part, making and receiving phone calls. We'll talk about how you can do that, whether it's with a phone on your desk, whether it's an application on your smartphone, or whether it's an application on your computer. Obviously, that's part of it. The solution includes unlimited local and long distance calling in North America. So that's part of the subscription as well. There are obviously all of the phone system features that go around that, hold and transfer and park and hunt groups and auto attendance and conferencing. I bring this up and I put these two at the top because if you've ever sat through some demos of some other platforms that do communications, sometimes there is an unnecessary, I would say, motivation to push people to stop using the phone And why aren't you texting people, or why aren't you using the soft phone? We understand that there are many people who want to do that, and then we understand there are many people who can't do that. If you're a pediatrician's office, the soft phone's probably not going to be the best thing at the front desk. They want a phone with buttons and lights and things like that. So know that this platform has a very rich and very deep telephone infrastructure behind it for features. Now that's, standard fare. There are also more advanced features like instant messaging, so you guys can send messages internally between your staff members, or even text messaging with SMS so that you could send and receive messages with your office phone number. We'll talk more about these later. Any collaborative platform is not complete unless we have meetings and webinars kind of like this, where you have multiple people call in or multiple people web in, and you turn your cameras on and you share screens, and that feature set, that's also part of the subscription and feature set as well. We'll talk more about that as well. We also include electronic faxing as part of this, whether those faxes are going to an old style fax machine or whether they're going electronically and being delivered by email. That's part of the platform as well. So if you've still got people begrudgingly using fax servers, we can probably put those out to pasture. And then as far as collaborative side, there are chat rooms and collaborative team rooms with file uploads and string conversations and pictures and all that kind of stuff. So that can be sort of an extension beyond just sending an IM with each other. You could have a team, a management team where you send messages to each other and they pop up and so forth. And then the last pillar of this is really specific for some verticals, is dealing with contact centers. And forgive me if there's construction noise behind me. I had to get out of the house and there's construction everywhere I go. But the call center functionality is around, you accepting either phone calls or emails or chats or web chats, and distributing those to agents and running reporting. That's also part of our platform as well. And there are many flavors of that as far. So this is a very broad platform: phone calls, texting, messaging, voicemail, faxing, call center, lots of things going on there. Let's get into some more details here. So this, like most cloud services, is delivered over the internet. So realistically, you could be anywhere where you have an internet connection and use all of these features, whether it's phone calls or meetings or faxing or whatever that may be. And this means that your connectivity from the office or your home or in your parking lot on your iPhone or whatever that may be, we need internet connectivity to do that. Our backend platform has multiple data centers that are active for redundancy. And so as long as you can get out to the internet, you're in good shape. There are some methodologies out there to mitigate internet outages. We can talk about that later as well if you're interested. If you've got 500 people in an office space, there's usually not one exit out the front door. There are probably several exits out of the building. And in a similar vein, we see more and more of our companies getting multiple internet carriers from different providers and connecting them all to the network. So if there is an issue with one or the other, they can still get to their phone services, their email services, whatever other cloud services out there. So it's something that's in some respects more resilient than it used to be, where you can have multiple ways to get to the cloud from your office, or in the event of a massive power outage, you could send people home and let them work from their homes using all the same tools. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the subscription. So like most cloud services, this is a subscription service. You pay per user per month. And there are levels of subscriptions. This basic one includes all the stuff that's on this long bulleted list, whether it's unlimited local and long distance calling, whether it's reusing your existing phone number, whether it's instant messaging, getting a fax number, getting a voicemail box, having all those voicemails delivered in email or transcribed and things like that. Every user also gets the ability to have their desk phone, their soft phone, their mobile device all at the same time. Every user gets their own conference bridge, so they can be invited to host a meeting, whether people are calling in or webbing in. I'll definitely elaborate on these features later. And then everybody also gets our cloud-based file solution called ShareSync. And this is integrated into our application, lets you share files amongst people inside the corporation as well as outside as well. Very, very deep. These features are all included in the subscription, but you don't have to make everybody use them. Some of our customers, they'll give a phone number and a voicemail box to somebody, but they might not give them the bridge. You do have a lot of administrative control to turn things on and off. If you already have a platform that does electronic faxing, there's no need to use ours. So don't assume that you have to use all these features, but assume that they are part of the platform, part of the subscription, and you can use them. So let's delve into a little bit deeper into some of these features. I mentioned voicemail. It's standard fare out there, but we do have voicemail transcription built in. So you will receive the message along with the transcription and the recording in case they were mumbling or speaking another language. We can deliver these voicemails either to your email address with an attachment and the transcription, or if you're under some regulatory burden and you don't want that information in your email address, those voicemails can appear in our applications, whether it's the mobile or the desktop application, or if you're really old school, you can push the old buttons on the phone and listen to them by calling into your number to listen to those as well. SMS is kind of an interesting thing, and not a lot of people have this these days in their office. Everyone has texting built into their mobile phones, but what happens if you want to text a customer or a prospect, but you don't want them to know your cell phone number? Maybe you want to text a customer and tell them that their delivery is on the way or something like that. So you can do all this from your office phone number. Your office DID now becomes a destination and a source for sending out text messaging. This will become even more important as all those young kids who never call anybody get into the workplace and they expect texting to be as ubiquitous as phone calls. Anybody who's been has been answering the phone in the last year or so knows that half or more of the calls we get are not real. They're junk. They're people trying to scam us or otherwise. We do have a spam filter built into this platform, and we can either block the call, or what many of our customers do is they tag it so that when that call arrives, the caller ID has been prepended with spam or fraud, and then you can see on your phone whether you recognize it or not and decide whether you want to deny that call or something like that. I think yesterday alone, I think I got 5 calls that were all spam calls to my desk, and I ignored each one of them as they came in. It saved me a lot of time and having to be polite and say no thank you and hang up. So that's part of that as well. I mentioned eFax as well. This is an electronic fax where we can send and receive faxes. We can either have those be delivered to email as a PDF, or if you've got some security concerns like HIPAA or PCI compliance, we can leave those faxes in an email portal or a web portal. So you only get an email alerting you to the fact that a fax has arrived, and then you have to log in securely to get that fax and print that out. This is a handy thing. Fax, as much as we'd like it, just won't die. There's still lots of people out there who use faxing on a daily basis, depending on industry. And this is something you could give everybody their own fax number. You could have a main number that goes to a receptionist and have them routed, or however you want to do that. The last feature that I called out here just to sort of shake things up here is call recording. This is a feature that's also built into the platform, and whether or not you're automatically recording all the calls or whether you're doing it on demand by pushing a button on the phone to record a segment. This is not something most of our customers use, but every once in a while there's somebody who wants this feature. It's built in. It can be turned on and off per user, and there's nothing extra about it. It's very handy if you wanted to, make a recording of an affidavit or something like that, or somebody attesting to, let me confirm you're doing your order this way, or something like that. Recording we tend to see a lot more in the call center environment because it's used for quality management and call assurance and things like that. But even on a regular user, this is a feature that's out there. All right, so all of this, and there's hundreds and hundreds of features, whether it's parking a call or paging through speakers or intercomming through the phone or transferring a call consultatively or blind. You should assume that all those features are built in. We would train you on how to use them, make sure that the appropriate ones are used. But when it comes down to using a lot of these features, especially around the phones and stuff, I was like, well, what are some of the ways you can do it? And I sort of alluded to this fact earlier that we had phones and handsets and software on mobile devices and so forth. So you really just need to have internet connectivity. Every user could have up to 5 different devices at the same time. So you could have a phone at home, a phone at the office, you could have your mobile device. If you received a call, you could have them all ring simultaneously. You could pick up on whenever one is convenient. You could use that. So that's very, very flexible out there. Now, what can you do to connect here? So let's look at some of the handsets that we offer. So here is the latest model handsets we have to offer. Usually people pick the executive set in the upper right-hand corner. And if you think I'm being serious, I'm not. I'm completely joking here. These are some historical artifacts that were dug up in the archaeological dig of our time in the past here. Goodbye to all these. Let's look at some of the new models. So we do have much fancier, much more advanced, crazier. Crazy to look at the old stuff. This is a subset. These are our most popular handsets that people do. We typically rarely reuse anyone's handsets from what they currently have today. Most of those are proprietary to what they have. And then the few instances that you have an existing cloud phone system, the labor and the effort to reflash and reuse those handsets is usually offset by the cost of that labor to do it. So most of our users are deploying new handsets as part of this, and we'll either sell you those or rent you those or lease you those, and roll that into your subscription cost so we can get rid of the capital expenditure up front. There are some great features with these handsets. Whether it's be color screens or touch screens, lots of buttons to press. Let me change my screen here. You can see a close-up of one of these sets. Large information, good labels on the sets, built into, user directories, things like that. These are easy to use and have, great speaker phones. They have some advanced stuff built into them, things like Bluetooth, things like Wi-Fi. That's an interesting one where someone wants to bring a physical phone home to their home office, but their home office doesn't have wired Ethernet like the office. Their router's in the basement where Comcast brought it in. So potentially you could plug this phone in to power and then join it to Wi-Fi in your office and then have the flexibility of putting it wherever you wanted. And we do have the ability, as I said before, you can have multiple devices for each user. So you could have a phone in the office, a phone at home, and you could have exactly the same buttons and phone numbers on it, and it doesn't care where you're sitting. You pick up the phone and make the call. We do address 911 so that if the phone is at your house, we'll send the emergency services to the right location if someone dialed 911 through that set versus the office. So that's all handled above board as well. So lots of functionality. These sets have speakerphones. They take headsets, which we'll talk about later. They can have multiple calls. You can page through them. You can scroll through your list of missed calls, all kinds of cool things about that. So a great history there and a lot of different options. If you've got, places you want to wall mount phones, excuse me, you can do that as well. A lot of functionality. So if I go a little farther here, the other part of this, besides using physical phones, is to use software. And this is part of, all the cloud platforms now. And the question would be, why would you want to install software on a computer? Well, it does phone stuff, but it does the other stuff we were talking about. This is where you potentially might do instant messaging or read your voicemail messages or listen to them, or potentially start a conference call and share your screen and all this other stuff. So this is an application that each one of these users could run optionally, or they could not, either one. They could run it in conjunction with their desk phone or instead of their desk phone, just using a headset like I'm using here as far as that's concerned. So this works on both Windows and Macintosh computers. You can see here at the top, if I've got an active call going, I can click buttons for mute and transfer and conference and things like that. I could potentially use this software as my telephone in sort of a soft phone methodology where I'm using the audio that's built into my computer or a headset plugged into the computer, or I could use it in sort of a controller mode where I tell I tell the software to make a call, and my desk phone rings, and the call actually happens on my desk phone, so I can have more predictable audio, or I don't have to worry about my computer as far as that's concerned. I can also use this application to do things like instant messaging. You can see here's a user having an instant messaging conversation with Robert Jones at the same time as they're talking to somebody completely different, because maybe I'm the receptionist. I want to ask somebody a quick question while I'm on the phone, or maybe they're on the phone as well. This application will show, whether people are on the phone, whether they've, moved their mouse in the last 15 minutes. It'll let you send quick messages to them. It'll let you send, emoticons or files or all kinds of collaborative side like that. Very different than email, more instant around that. And it's the same sort of thing we would use for a group chat as well. We just have multiple people in that platform. I can obviously look at my voicemail messages here. Maybe I don't have them going to email. Maybe I'm also having them going to email. I can listen to them. I can call people back. I can look at the transcription, all that part of stuff. I can also look at my call history. If I happen to be in an industry where I need to keep track of my hours, I could go back, look at my call history, and look at the time I spent on each one of those calls as well. That's all part of that as well. And again, remember, I only need internet access to do this. I could be sitting at home or on a hotspot in Starbucks and using this application as well. On my PC, I might also participate in a conference call. This is, everybody and their brother has been on video calls in the last year, but this is still a core part of the product. Very easy to start a call. We can host lots of people. We can host cameras, share screens. I'll talk a little bit about more of this a little bit later. The platform that we're hosting this webinar on is the same platform as well. It's a little bit different flavor of it, where normally in a conference call, all the participants would be able to speak and turn their cameras on and so forth. What else we got here? So all kinds of functionality in this application here. If we switch gears here a little bit and we talk about mobile devices, there are a lot of people who want the flexibility and freedom of being able to communicate using their business identity on their mobile phone. And this could be either a mobile phone or a tablet. We do support iPads and Android tablets as well. And the functionality of the software on the mobile and the tablet is very similar to the desktops. I can make and receive phone calls. I can send instant messages. I can read voicemails. I could send text messages, all this coming from my corporate identity here. And whether I'm sitting at home on Wi-Fi or whether I'm standing in the middle of a field on 4G data, I can do all this as well, because again, it's just internet connectivity. So this is something that people will use all the time because they're walked away from their desk, or they're in the backyard splitting wood, or they're pretending to work and telling their boss that they're at work, but they're doing all that. A lot of functionality there as well, and both Google and Apple have done a very good job in incorporating this, so that even if your phone is locked, the phone will pop up and show you that it's a phone call and let you answer it, and so forth. Very handy to use. And remember, you can have multiple devices. You could have your mobile phone ring at the same time as your desk phone and your soft phone, and you pick it up on whatever device is important to you. There are times when we will start to be back in meeting rooms again. And when we're there, we may want to have conference phones, phones that have big speakers or cordless microphones and things like that. We can also integrate to more complicated room systems where there are hanging microphones and speakers built into the table. That flexibility is there, and we have a lot of experience with doing stuff like that to make sure that we can incorporate it into AV systems as well. Beyond that, there are other sort of weird corner case things like the loading dock phone, or the reception area phone, or the weird TTY phone that somebody got that they want to connect. That's all part of our partner relationship with you, is to work through those situations. We've done implementations where we've connected those blue campus emergency lights to the cloud phone system as well. So the standard set of phones are for normal users, but we can sort of spread out beyond that for all those things that you might still have kicking around from your old style phone system, where you press pound to unlock the front door when someone calls and things like that. So lots of options there as well. This feature here I bring up because I'm sort of hammering through that the fact that you can have multiple devices. That's great, and it's not great in one respect where you can't get a break. In this case, this particular feature called Call Flip allows you to move a telephone call from one device to another. So, for example, if I'm up at the water cooler and my mobile phone app rings and I notice that someone's calling me, I could answer it and say, "Hey, this is Jeremy, great," and then I could slowly walk back to my office where I want to complete this half an hour call, but I don't want to sit there with my mobile phone up against my face. I can tap a button on the application to move that call over to my desk phone, or vice versa, where I could start a call on my desk phone and move it to my mobile device and then leave the office with me. So this is a handy thing. The caller presumably here's a very small period of silence while you move the call from one to the other. A lot of people warn them they're going to do this, but you don't have to do that. So this is a handy feature out there as well. Most of our other apps, if not all of them, including the desk phones, they do have Do Not Disturb built into them as well. So if I have a phone at my house and I go back to the office for a day, I can tap a button on the physical phone to silence that phone from ringing so that my family members don't need to hear my phone ringing all the day in my home office. Or potentially, if I have the mobile app running, I can either schedule or manually make that phone app stop alerting me of office phone calls after 6 p.m. every day. So I do have some semblance of a private life at that point. So there are ways to mitigate the fact that you have multiple devices, but when you do have multiple devices, that's a great play. Eli, anything else about multiple device use that you feel that people should know, and how that's been successful, or counteracting the ball and chain effect?
Yeah, I think, I like your example about being at the water cooler, and kind of migrating back to the desk. I think other uses that we see a lot are folks that are field sellers or out in the field a lot, and kind of commuting to a home office or even a traditional office, but have to get out in the field, right? So the opposite of your example would be the case then, right? You take the call on the desk phone and then, or the desktop application, and you move that call to your mobile so you can get on the road. This is exceptionally valuable if you get a new prospect call. I think the data suggests that over half of the amount of time you try and take a call and reschedule that call, you won't connect again with that prospect. So we don't want to lose opportunity. And so Call Flip is a nice way to mitigate losing those opportunities and keeping things seamless. Yeah.
We've also seen a lot of customers who have field employees or remote employees, and providing them with their ability to make and receive phone calls where the caller ID says the company name, it's not the cell phone. They're more connected now. They're accessible via instant messaging, which is a bit more urgent than sending somebody an email. These are ways to sort of unify a distributed company. We'll see more of that over the next couple of years as companies decide how much to come back to the office and how much to embrace the remote worker. But if I can get remote workers working all over the United States or world for that matter, still instantly accessible with instant messaging, with presence, so I can tell whether they're online or not, whether I can tell whether they're on the phone or not. Making phone calls, making quick internal extension calls, dialing their 3 or 4 digits or whatever that may be. This is going to sort of counteract the dilution of the company spirit, so to speak, in a lot of people, and a lot of play there as well. All right. So, headsets have, as you can see, I'm wearing one here, right, have become the new fashion accessory, especially when people are working remotely, or when people are working with a soft phone or something PC based. There are a lot of options here. We have some fantastic wireless headsets with very good range and good audio quality and good battery life and so forth. Whether you're a 1-ear person or a 2-ear person or a don't touch my hair person who want to hang it off your ear, we have lots of different options there. If you don't want to go wireless, we have wired options that plug into the phone or the computer as well. People have been spending a lot of time on phone calls remotely on headsets. These are very comfortable and rock solid as far as that's concerned. Okay. I wanted to elaborate a little bit more about the meeting thing because, so much collaboration has moved towards meeting. The meeting platform that's part of this for every user is called Online Meeting. It does support a lot of features today. It's a very moving platform. There's been a lot of features added over the last year. It's the new sort of keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing as far as what feature do we have. So for every one of your users in the platform, they have their own conference bridge, the number and a pin to call in, or a web URL to link in there as well. They could have 200 people call in on the telephone and have a telephone call together. If they wanted people to come in through the web or through the PC, they could have 100 people join. 30 of those can turn their camera on. By the end of next quarter, I think that number is increasing to 100 people with their cameras on. That kind of gets out of control with the giant Brady Bunch or the Top Talker, but this is more than enough to support any relatively easy meeting. And these numbers keep expanding about the number of participants. They all can be, all in a Brady Bunch, or you can have Top Talker, you can share your screen, you can write on the screen with an annotation. We have some very cool features in our meeting platform around taking notes during the meeting and having people automatically get an email of all the notes that were taken in the meeting. So it's like we had a meeting secretary for any meeting. We also have some automatic AI bots that run in the background if you want, that will transcribe the entire meeting and send it to you, and even look at what people have been talking about and have follow-up items and cool things like that. We can record these meetings and send out links for people for recording as well. I would say in the world of sort of we have something and somebody else doesn't have something, I think one of the best parts about our meeting, and you probably all experienced that when you join this webinar platform, is that if you join through Chrome or Microsoft Edge browser, you don't need to download anything. You can join the meeting, you're in it, your microphone works, your camera works. I can't tell you how frustrating it is to start every meeting 10 minutes late because there's been yet another Zoom update, WebEx update, GoToMeeting update, Teams update, and whatever that may be. So the joining via a browser is key. Sadly, we still need to download applications for mobile devices, but maybe that will change in the future. But the ease of joining and the predictability of that platform is fantastic. There are some cool features that a lot of users are very interested in. One is being able to quickly invite people from within Outlook. We've got a great integration for clicking a button and having it automatically pop in the invite into your Outlook invites as well. We can also do that integration with Google Apps or G Suite and have a one-button click to add to there as well. The other part of this is that when you have a web link to it to invite somebody to a meeting, you can actually customize that web link. So instead of being, conferencecall.com / some 45 string of random characters, it could be something like Jeremy Vignaux. So you could potentially tell somebody, hey, if you want to jump on my call, just go to gomeet.com / Jeremy, and they're in. So all about ease of use, trying to get people to have lower barriers to use some of these features, because it's great to have them, but they're kind of a waste when nobody uses them as far as that's concerned. Yep. So I mentioned very early on, we have a cloud file share application that's built into this solution as well. This is optional. You can turn this on or off. There are some differentiators in this application beyond things like Dropbox for Business or OneDrive. We automatically back up all the files on people's desktops as well as their folder. We offer some very simple rollback features for potentially corruption or ransomware attacks and things like that, versioning, so forth. Very easy to share files externally, and then fully auditable. So we have a great audit trail for what people are doing in case you have a regulatory sense or need to find out what's going on there, as well as this being both PCI and HIPAA compliant storage as well. So whether you use this feature or not, that's up to you. But it is integrated into the application in a way that makes it super easy to use. And very reliable as well. Now we're coming up to the point where I want to get to Q&A, but I wanted to give Eli a couple of minutes to talk about security and compliance and even some reliability, redundancy and reliability, because I can wave my hands all day long about the fact that this is in the cloud, but if it's not secure and reliable, it's of no use to us. So I'll see what light you can shed on that.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, you already alluded to this, the solution being, both HIPAA and FINRA compliant. We also have available the SOC 3 security audit. And so we can get a good sense. And as Jeremy mentioned, there's a really tight trail for any auditing needs and purposes. PCI, DSS, and several others. So, you're not getting yourself into a situation where you're flying blind, at least in the back end, right? If there does come a need where audit is required, then we could very easily pull that. We also do have access to deeper auditing beyond the SOC 3, SOC 2, if need be. So I think that does speak to, it's kind of a testament to the solution itself, and that, again, this is not, you're not flying blind, or you're not kind of tucking information away. Everything is as transparent as possible. And that comes, you might be in an industry where these requirements are a deal breaker for you, right? And so the good news is, along with the HIPAA compliance and the FINRA stuff, as long as everyone is working in compliance at your organization, so too is the technology. And I think that's really, really critical, especially today. As it comes to resiliency and redundancy and failover, it's important that, we mentioned that the solution comes with a 99.999% uptime guarantee, right? That is that's our SLA, the 5 nines. And what's important to us here together with regard to the 5 nines is that this is less than 26 seconds of downtime per month, less than 6 minutes of downtime per year for you. So this is a really, really reliable solution. If you drop even one of those nines and fall into a 4 nines uptime service level agreement, that less than 6 minutes, becomes an hour plus of downtime per year. So look, everything is rosy on the front end, and when you're talking about delivering a solution, but you want to know that ongoing the solution is going to maintain a really strong uptime. You're going to have great call quality. That's another really, really important factor. A lot of competitors out there are kind of bolting on the PBX function around, an existing unified communication suite of products. But a lot of the work we do today still happens on the telephone. And so you have to have great call quality. And so this is certainly the case. The 5 nines SLA allows us to ensure that we can deliver that to you. Now, it's also important that your network will help us deliver that to your organization. And so that's why we take very seriously pre-deployment network testing. We have a few different flavors of how we do that, but we really want to get a good idea for the bandwidth consumption on your network so that we know that when we make a promise to you, we can deliver that. And so we'll be able to report out on latency, jitter, packet loss, buffer, and the like to ensure that on a 3 to 5 day network test, we know for sure that your network is going to allow us to keep our promise and deliver a really reliable quality of service.
Yeah, that's
Jeremy?
part of that partner side. I mean, I'll tell you from experience, this is sort of bringing it back to that original pitch I said about the fact that this is not just calling a call center. This is a partner. There are things that do come up, and they're hard to fix sometimes. 2 weeks ago, we were out at a customer who was complaining about call quality problems, and we went out there for hours with a packet capture on the network and found out that they had installed an Ethernet switch on another side of the building that was fighting with the other Ethernet switches for spanning tree elections and was pausing traffic every 2 seconds. This is the kind of stuff that the average user is not going to understand themselves, and it's not something you can diagnose remotely. You need someone who will physically come out and figure out what's going on, or you'll need somebody to argue intelligently and constructively with a carrier saying, well, no, it's not us. It's the fact that the internet goes down every 2 days for an hour, and I can prove it with historical statistics here and stuff like that. So it's kind of like everybody can do plumbing at home, but when you really need a plumber because something's really gone wrong with the drain, you really need someone to physically come out there and do that, which is why, You can do some things yourself, but the experts are important of that. So to have an advocate on your side who can physically come out, who has the expertise, who has your interest at play, and is not just trying to get you off the phone, really is a big differentiator, right? And so over the next couple of years, we'll see more and more customers come to us after a bad experience, because it can go well, but when it goes bad, it goes very bad, and they don't care. They're really far away. So that partner advocate is a key aspect of that too. And we can talk about uptime all day long. The best we can do is tell you what they've been able to pull off in the past, what their history is, because I think this is true. I think Microsoft's SLA for Microsoft 365 is only 3 nines.
That's right.
They haven't added the 4th 9 yet, so it is what it is. But that may or may not be acceptable to you, and no one from Microsoft is ever going to drive out and find the fact that somebody plugged the phone in the conference room in twice into the network and created a loop. You're going to need someone to figure that out. So that partner side of that is really key. So
Gary, I think it's important, before we jump to Q&A, that we add that having multiple data centers in the event of failover or disaster recovery is really important. So having the ability to push information in real time from one to another protects your information, protects your data, and it really helps to build that secure failover process. And so not everyone's out here able to do that. And so I think that's kind of another element that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention.
No, that's true. Yep. And having them active is a key. We've had some experience with some carriers in the past who have a second data center, but they won't go to it unless the world starts spinning the other way or something. I mean, they have to have a disaster declaration the size of the world in order to do that. So there's a bit of smoke and mirrors sometimes in people's descriptions of that. But again, it's really about what they've delivered in history, and how honest they are up front with you as far as that's concerned. So I mean, that's kind of where I wanted to stop. I do want to get to some Q&A. This wasn't necessarily intended as a full demo, but give you a sense of functionality, differentiator, ease of use, depth of features, and so forth. But Kristen, thanks for jumping back on. Do we have any questions from the audience that they're dying to know the answer to?
We do. We actually have quite a few, so let me get through them. Can you integrate with Microsoft Teams?
Yeah, so a common question, right? So, everybody and their brother uses Teams because it was built into their subscription. The answer is yes, we can. We can be the phone system provider for Teams. So we have some customers these days that are using Teams as their one and only software in their desk, but our Elevate platform in the back end is the one that's doing dial tone and voicemail and auto attendant and things like that. In that scenario, many of those customers are not actually running our software apps. They're not using our Elevate apps. They're using Teams instead, but they are using us for all the call usage, the menus, the auto attendants, and things like that, and potentially even for putting handsets on their desk or paging speakers in the ceiling and things like that. So there are quite a few Teams integration options depending on how you want to do that.
Great. That actually leads into my next question on here. Are we able to connect to a speaker system in a warehouse or manufacturer setting?
Yes, very common. Something that many of the cloud carriers are loath to do, or they ask you to do it yourself. No, that's something we do all the time. We can figure out how to connect the amplifier from the 1980s into the phone system of the 2020s. And we've got a lot of people who've been around the days to do that. So yes, we can reuse speaker-based paging systems, whether they're in warehouses or in schools or whatever that may be. That's in that category of those weird, duct tape covered, landmines that have been around for a long time that are par for the course, but they're frankly critical. You can't tell somebody to stop using a feature like that. And that could be a paging system. It could be a weird door phone. It could be a telephone banking IVR that they've had that people call in and get their balances, all kinds of things we integrate with.
Great. Can you replace my contact center?
Yes. So I talked only very briefly about that because it's not every customer out there who wants this, but a contact center where customers or prospects or whomever, your clients of yours, either call in or these days do other methodologies like web chat or SMS. We have a lot of solutions around how we deliver those to agents, where the agents can sit, what kind of statistics we can gather, what kinds of stuff. We have a lot of solutions there. Even from the sort of low end solution where all you want to do is just deliver phone calls predictably to a group of people, or the sky's the limit where you want people to call in or text in or chat in and have database lookups and fancy stuff like that. So definitely a lot of contact center functionality built in. And usually that is added on to the core PBX, although our standard subscription does include standard queuing and for call centers, which would be fine for a lot of groups as well.
Great. Will we be able to keep our phone numbers?
I'm going to let Eli answer this one.
Yeah, that's an easy one. Absolutely, very similar to the way you would port, a phone number on your mobile carrier. The same is true here. So, of course, we'll be able to assign some temporary numbers to get you up and running, and then reassign the existing numbers that you want to port in once they become available and released right from the losing carrier. But that's simply done. We get you to fill out a letter of authorization, and we work with the losing carrier to make sure that we can pull those over and get them routed and assigned accordingly to the users that those numbers belong to. But short answer.
Right, and we're always on the phone live when that's happening. That yep. Sort of porting event, that's something we babysit, we quarterback, we handle that off because it can be nerve-wracking for people to know that their numbers are moving from one to the other. I mean, it's one thing to get a new cell phone and move it over yourself, but it's a different thing to move 500 phone numbers over and make sure the toll-free still rings in the right place. So that's something that's a key part of our project management and install. And it's not something we have you do yourself. We're there every step of the way.
Yep.
Great. Just a couple more. Will my internet connection be good enough?
So this is a good question. We mentioned, or I mentioned several times, that we are using the internet. For locations where we have a lot of people, like office spaces and things like that, prior to the project, we will do a internet assessment where we'll actually simulate telephone calls, tens of thousands of calls with software or a physical device over the course of 3 to 5 business days. And the idea is we're testing your internet while you're open to make sure you can also do the phone calls on top of that, making sure that it's predictable, the packet loss isn't bad, the delay isn't back. We typically don't do that for every home office, but there have been instances where we can test that. The phone calls don't particularly use a ton of bandwidth per se, but they're persnickety about the delay and otherwise. There's no hourglass on a phone while you're talking. Either you're talking or you're not. You can be browsing the web, or you can be looking at Netflix and there's buffering, but there really isn't that side. We don't have that leeway on the phone side. So it's really more about the quality of the connection than the size of the connection. Although if you have a small connection and you've got 10 people on video calls, that may be a problem as well. So we do have methodologies for testing, and that does come up in our pre-qualification as well. And then remember also that I talked about a lot of companies having multiple internet connections at the same time in their office space, so they don't have all their eggs in one basket.
Great. Okay. And for those hybrid workers, can I use a physical phone at my house?
Yes. So this has come up a lot where I personally actually work at home 3 days a week and come into the office 2 days a week. I have a physical phone, one of those nice looking Yealink color phones on my desk at home, and I have one at the office. They both have the same phone number on it. They both have the same buttons on it. It's smart enough to know that that the 911 calls are being made from different addresses, so don't worry about that as well. So yeah, a lot of flexibility. Or in our case, we have an office on the South Shore, and we have some users who have a phone down there as well as a phone upstairs as well.
Great. And the last question before we get to our Amazon gift card giveaway is, can I reuse my old handsets?
Yeah, so I mentioned this earlier before. So, if you've got a traditional, on-site phone system like an old Nortel, Avaya, Mitel, the short answer is no. Those are all proprietary handsets that can't be reused. We run into a couple situations where you have a customer who's moving from another cloud provider, and they do have a phone that's technically supported on our platform, but what we usually find is that the labor to reprogram that phone is so onerous that it's sometimes more cost effective, or logistically in the time frame of how you're going to cut over from one to the other, there's just not enough time to do it, that we rarely see people reusing their phones. But as a discussion we can have on a case-by-case basis. A lot of times people are renting their phones as part of their service these days, and they're getting a new phone every 3 years. So the impetus to retain these old cruddy looking things is usually diminished at that point.
And
all right, how
was
we do?
Our last question.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you all for attending and staying on till the end. We used our wheel of names. If you haven't seen it online, you should Google it. It's pretty great. And after spinning it, the winner is, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing your last name wrong, but we'll be reaching out to you after. Jill Lazzari, you are the winner of the $100 gift card from
Congratulations,
Amazon.
Jill.
So we will be in touch with you after this. And a reminder, everybody else on here will be getting a Grubhub gift card as well. And please take a few minutes. I promise it's only 4 questions. Take the survey afterwards.
Pops up automatically. You just have to sit there and wait. It's just super easy. Yep.
And if anyone is interested in having a recording of this, just reach out to us and we'll get it over to you as soon as we can.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Eli. Thanks, Kristen. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Take care.